Alrighty, it's on the eve of the CFL season, although there were some exhibition games last week. I'm joined today by Jovon Johnson, former Winnipeg Blue Bomber, and now on the coaching staff of the Toronto Argos. And it's funny how life comes full circle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is truly.
Yeah, so do you just want to maybe talk about your playing career and just how you heard about the CFL and just kind of stops along the way? We can maybe stop at Swaggerville for a bit. Maybe some coaches that had influence on you and that sort of thing. But yeah, we can kind of get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I started playing football, you know, early eighth grade. I was a basketball player to begin with. Um, and I didn't really care to play football. I did it in the yard just to kind of play around with my friends and things of that nature, but I never truly took it serious to the point where I thought or dreamed that I'd be a professional football player someday.
Hmm.
Um, and, as my career began, my best friends got me into playing football. They were superstar football players at a young age. They started playing before they could even remember about football. Um, in eighth grade, I picked up the football for the first time, and the coach tossed me the ball, and he told me to start warming up my arm, and I didn't know what he was talking about, because I wasn't a football player. So he told me I had to be playing quarterback, and I thought he was crazy. And he when he said it, I kind of had this puzzled look on my face, like, quarterback, and then he told me that he came and actually watched me play basketball. And because I was a point guard in basketball, he said there were a lot of similarities to playing quarterback. So
Hmm.
I was like, okay. But obviously the game is different. So, I didn't really get the correlation at the time, but hindsight 50/50, I understand. Um, so I played quarterback, and in my first year of playing football, the team that I quarterbacked for went undefeated. Um, and testament to my teammates, because it wasn't because of me. Um, it was simply because I had a lot of great athletes in the back end, running the ball. The tight end that I had at the time catching the ball was elite. So I had some very talented players on my team that did all the work. I just managed the game, took the snap, handed the ball off, or took the snap and ran and threw it. Um, and then we went undefeated, and then I kind of started to like it.
Hmm.
I didn't love it yet, but I did start to like it. And after my eighth grade year, going into high school, a lot of the high school teams wanted me to come play for them. And again, like, being new to the game, like, I didn't know what that was all about. So I was still trying to navigate those waters to see what was really what. And I ended up choosing going to school with, the people from my neighborhood that I grew up with. And it probably wasn't the greatest decision, but it did teach me a lot about myself, and the amount of self-control and self-discipline that I had. Because a lot of the guys that I played with in high school, my first 2 years, they were just undisciplined, didn't have any dreams and actions and in the sport. Um, and I knew that if I were to have a chance to go and be somebody in life, I would have to go to college. And I knew my parents couldn't afford to send me to college with the finances that they had. So um, I just really put my head down, worked on it. Even though in the first 2 years we only won one game in 2 years. So
Hmm.
um, and it was just the lack of discipline, the lack of accountability, the things that the coaches preach about the team need to have in order to be successful. We didn't have that. And it was not because of the lack of talent. It was more so the lack of structure within the program. And the coaches were good, but they just couldn't hold kids accountable during that time, because kids wanted to do whatever they wanted to do. Um, so I took a beating. Although I did have success, it was hard earned success just to, you know, score a touchdown, or even, get recognized for anything. I had to really go above and beyond because I didn't have a lot of help. um, because guys just didn't care enough to want to come to practice. And then after my sophomore year, I decided, I wasn't going to deal with it anymore. So I transferred to a prep school where my two best friends, they were attending, and I went there to play with them, and it was night and day. Like just the structure, the accountability, the guys were there without even being asked to be there. And it showed me that the good teams, they have the structure and discipline without the coaches. The coaches aren't the driving force that makes the ship go. It's the guys that's on the field, the guys that want to be there, and the guys that put the work in. So, that first year after transferring, we went 7-5. Um, and we had a really good year. We lost a couple close games. So I knew going into my senior year that we were going to be really good. I didn't know how good, but I knew we were going to be really good. Um, and then senior year, my 12th grade year, we ended up going undefeated. We were the number one team in the state. Um, and I led the state in interceptions. I had 10 interceptions as a senior.
Hmm.
Um, and I also had 8 punt return touchdowns, and I had 18 touchdowns as a quarterback. So, um, I kind of was the Swiss Army knife. I was the only player on our team that never came off the field the whole season.
Crazy.
So I scored a touchdown, believe it or not, in every way possible that you could think of in my senior year. Whether that was an interception return for a touchdown, fumble recovery return for a touchdown, caught a pass for a touchdown, ran a touchdown, threw a touchdown. I mean, you name it, I did it all. Um, so it was an incredible season for me. But even with that, recruiting for me was few far and in between. Like I didn't get a ton of
Mm.
college opportunities coming knocking on my door. Um, a lot of people said that my size was a factor. It was an issue. I was too small to play at the big levels. I wasn't fast enough. All those things that I've heard my entire life that kind of taught me to wear a chip on my shoulder to show people and prove people wrong. I heard it, and going into that off season, my senior year, I only had one Division I scholarship, and that was to Kent State. So during my basketball season, I was still actively getting recruited by a lot of schools, but nobody was really pulling the trigger.
Mhm.
Um, so I had verbally committed to Kent because I felt like that was the best place for me because I didn't have many other options. And it was an opportunity for me to go to school for free without having my parents have to pay for school. So after that, um, in like 2 weeks before signing day, my teammate who was getting recruited by everybody, he was a state champion, 100-meter dash champion in track. He was 6'1", 90 pounds. He had all the glitz and glamour that anybody could ask for in the DB. He was the other corner. Um, so, he was getting recruited heavily. He had offers everywhere. You name it, he had it. Um, and the University of Iowa coaching staff came in to recruit him. And during that recruiting segment, I actually sat in on the meeting and I was in there kind of plugging myself, just telling him, if he didn't choose to go there, he had a teammate that would love to do it and could play. And, all you had to do is just put the film on and you'll see. So actually, while watching his film, they saw me lead. I the quarterback. We ran what we call power toss, where I'd pitch him the ball and then I would lead block for him. So they see me like leading and like just blowing people up, and they were like, "That is very rare as a quarterback." So um, the DB coach actually came down. I had to leave the meeting to go to basketball practice, and the DB coach came down to my basketball practice, and he asked me if I could dunk a basketball, and I got a ball for one of my teammates. I dunked it, and he walked out. And the next day, they offered me a scholarship. So and it was literally like probably about 8 days before signing day. Um,
Nice.
so and then I ended up taking a visit the weekend before signing day, and then I was like, yeah, this is the place for me. Um, because I had some familiarity with a couple guys that were on that team, that were from my hometown, and Bob Sanders, who a lot of people know, the coach safety that was a wrecking ball. He played with me at the University of Iowa, but he was also from where I'm from. And then another guy by the name of Ed Hinkle, who was also a receiver from where I'm from, that also played in the NFL. Um, so they were already there. They were 1 and 2 years older than me. So it felt like home when I went on the visit. And then after my visit, I decided that once I graduated, I was going to leave and go to school right during the summer, like as soon as graduation ended, just to get my foot in the door, get accustomed to the way they did things, and just see, who's who and what's what, so I can figure out, who I was going to need to beat out for a job and what I was going to have to do to get it.
Yeah.
Um, so I went out there over the summer, and Bob Sanders, I actually stayed with him throughout that summer. And during that summer, not only was I able to utilize the weight program to put my body, get my body prepared to play in the Big Ten, but also um, I was able to learn the playbook. Being that Bob was the safety, and the safeties in our defense made all the check calls. So he would teach me all the different nuances of calls and what they meant and like who was doing what. So by the end of the summer, going into my freshman year, I already knew the entire playbook inside and out, front to back, all the calls, all the checks, so on and so forth. So going into camp my freshman year, I was light years ahead of the other freshmen that were coming in my class, and probably a lot of the guys that had already been there because they took it for granted.
Hmm.
So when I showed up, a lot of people, my I, the little bit of recruiting that I actually had. So everybody was just like, he's just a guy. He's just another guy that they all relate. He's not going to amount to anything. And I'm sure that's what everybody else thought as well. But uh, lo and behold, did they know that in came a little fireball from Erie, Pennsylvania that had a chip on his shoulder that was going to go out there and kick, scratch, claw, and do whatever he needed to do to make sure that he was on that field come game one.
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, in second practice, my freshman year, I actually smoked our tight end with no pads on. Like we just had on helmets, and uh, and I was already pissed off because of one of the other offensive players was talking crazy, and they threw him the ball, and I was playing cover two in the flat, and I literally smoked him. Um, and then I got cussed out, got kicked off the field. And during practice, they made me go back to the locker room, whatever. And then in the meeting room, the DB coach, replayed it like 8 times. And I'm like, all right, coach, I get it. Like he was like, no, you don't understand. Like, I don't know where we found you at, but this shit right here, I freaking love it. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, now we own to something because that's me every day. So, I ended up being the second string corner going into the season. So I actually was up for all the games my freshman year. So I was the second string corner week one. And
Hmm.
in that first game as a freshman, we were up probably 50 to nothing against, one of those FCS or MAC schools that we played to kind of get tuned up. And I actually went in a game in the second half. And in the second half of the first three games, my freshman year, I had three interceptions and I only played the second half of all three games. So, coming into week four, the DB coach and the defensive coordinator and the head coach sat me down with the guy that was in front of me, and they was like, "Hey, like we gonna have to play the young guy. Like every time he goes on the field, he just makes a play."
Hmm.
So I ended up starting the rest of the year. I ended my freshman season starting 6 or 7 games, and I had 4 interceptions at the end of the season as a true freshman. Um, so, that's kind of where the rain began. And that was where my mentality kind of formed. Um, and I refused to lose no matter what it looked like, how it was going to happen. I was not going to lose. And then my sophomore year, kind of going into it, I knew I would be the starter, but in my mind, I was still working for everything that I wanted, and I wasn't going to allow myself to feel comfortable at any point because I knew how I got the job, I could lose the job. So you know, work, and then in my second year in college, I ended up being second team All Big Ten. I got robbed. Um, I had the most or the second most interceptions in the conference. And on the first team, All Big Ten team, they had four safeties, no corners. So, it was one of those things where, all four of the safeties that were on that list, they were going to be high draft picks. So they ended up kind of, you know, messing um, with the team so that it could be all safeties and no corners, which was really messed up because I would have been a first team All Big Ten for multiple years if that didn't happen.
Right.
So I had six interceptions that year. I was like, I want to say like sixth or fifth or sixth in the country or whatever. Um, and I was second team All Big Ten. And then my junior year, I had four interceptions my junior year. And then I needed four interceptions to tie the record at Iowa going into my senior year. So I just knew I was going to break it. I had every intention on breaking Now Kinnick's record. But, in that senior year, because of the number of times I picked the ball off in previous years, I wasn't getting the opportunities that I wanted. People weren't really throwing the ball my way. So it was like, I had to just like try to figure out a way to make a play with the limited opportunities that I did get. I did have four interceptions that year, but one of them got back. So I ended my college career with 17 interceptions, one behind the record of 18. But I was pleased with that. But I had a very good college run. I was multiple time All Big Ten. And again, when I got done with college, I dealt with the same story all over again. Like he's too small, he's probably not big enough for the NFL, he's not fast enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they just continue to light the fire that I had inside of me to just continue to prove people wrong. So um, I didn't get drafted, although going into the draft, I was rated the number 7 corner in the country, and 6 of the top 7 corners got drafted in the first 2 rounds. And I thought for sure that I would be next on the list, but my name never got called. So they just, again, kept that fire burning. And then I got a call from the Steelers and in free agency, and they said they wanted to sign me. Somehow I ended up in New York with the Jets, which was the worst decision of my life. Um, because if I had just went to Pittsburgh, I would have had a Super Bowl championship and I would have played multiple years in the NFL. But I went to New York because of the agent I had at the time. He was
Hmm.
pushing for me to go to New York. And because of them giving me, like $5,000, I think it was like $5,000 signing bonus or something like that. But Pittsburgh told me during free agency that I would be the only DB that they brought in, and I wouldn't have to worry about making a team. So to me, that was a no-brainer.
Right.
But to my agent, obviously, an agent wants you to get money so that they can get paid. Um, so it kind of worked out in his favor, not in mine. So I ended up going to New York. I got released 3 times in the entire time that I was there. So I got released twice in probably 2 or 3 weeks back to back. And then I ended up coming back and playing throughout the preseason, had a really good preseason, and got released at the end of the camp. Um, and then the DB coach there, when I sat down and talked to him, he just was like, I don't even know what to tell you because I really fought to try to keep you here. And, they just, nobody's trying to hear it. And I think you would really fit in this room and you can do some amazing shit, but we just can't keep you around because of numbers. So I'm like, hey, it is what it is. And then after I left New York, I got a call from Pittsburgh, and they were like, "Are you ready to be a Steeler now?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course." But in that instance, because I didn't sign with Pittsburgh, they actually signed another DB in place of me.
Hmm.
So now when I go there, the kid that they signed in place of me, he moves to the active roster, and I move to the practice squad.
Oh,
So it was like, you know, I really fucked myself, to be honest, by making that move. But you know, it was a gift and a curse, and I learned from it. But I played that first year under Bill Cowher. And Cowher, out being on practice squad, you got to be able to do a lot of different things. So like, I would play work done in practice, or I would play Reggie Bush in practice, and I would play like these superstar guys in practice, and it was the head coach Cower would call me in the office and he would be like, you're one of the most athletic guys on this team, and I think you will be a great option to emulate what these guys do on the field because of your skill set. So I would go out there and I would just give the defense hell every week, like every day. And I would piss them off so much that like a lot of them would be like trying to fight me, or they would get mad and they tackle me in practice, and it'd be funny to me, but they'd be so pissed off that I'm just out there just running around having a blast and I'm killing them. And I'm talking about these guys are superstars. I'm talking Joey Porter, James Harrison, Troy Polamalu, Ryan Clark,
yeah,
Deshae Townsend. These are guys that everybody knows.
yeah,
And in practice, I'm making those guys look like they don't even belong. So um, in the last 4 games of the year, the DB coach, Darren Perry, he was the assistant DB coach with the Steelers, but he actually fought to get me on the roster and for the last 4 active games. And when I was on the field in those games, I played mostly on special teams, and I was having a field day. Like I literally probably made every play. When I had a chance to make a tackle, I made the tackle like every single time. And then I got you know told that coming back that I was gonna have an opportunity the next year to be able to get a spot and earn my keeps. But then Cower ended up leaving.
that's right.
So Cower ended up retiring. Had some issues with his wife. I think she was like kind of having some health issues, so he couldn't really, stay and give us his all. So he ended up stepping down, and then they brought in Tomlin, and then in that era of Tomlin, he came in, he told us all that he was going to give everybody a fair opportunity and so on and so forth, and made it sound really good. But that just didn't happen, and I got released at the end of preseason that year in 2007. I had a really good preseason, scored a touchdown in preseason and everything, but I just didn't make the cut. Plus, they drafted William Gay in the 6th round that year, so it was probably a long shot just because of the fact that they drafted a DB and just the numbers game and all of that. But we had a guy named Ricardo Coakley who I think is a phenomenal human, but as a football player, I thought I was a better player without a doubt. Um, and he was a 2nd round draft pick, but he was going into the last year of his contract. And people don't understand how investments work in the NFL. Like if they feel like they spend a lot of money on you to draft you, they're going to give you every opportunity there is to make sure that you get a chance to show that you were the guy that they expect you to be when they drafted you. So he was going into the last year of his deal. I was just a 2nd-year player, and they said that they wanted to see if he would ever amount to becoming the player that they thought he could be, and for the reason why they drafted him. So they kept him and they let me go, um, and then I made that trek north to Canada, and that's kind of where the story of Jovon Johnson began.
Yeah, with the Riders, Grey Cup with the Riders in '07, and then with the Bombers from 2008 to 2013, and a variety of coaches and Swaggerville and all of that.
Yeah.
I got to ask you the impact of Richard Harris on your life?
Yeah, he was like a father figure to us. My years in Winnipeg when he was around, he really kind of kept us all together. Like we were all young and wild and just rambunctious individuals that were confident and just loving life. But he kept us grounded and showed us that, in order to be a pro, you got to act like one every day. And you can't just go out there and just be ridiculous and do stupid shit. Otherwise, there was, repercussions that you had to own up to. And so he kept us grounded, and he really helped us grow up, to be honest. And that's kind of was the beginning of why we started the Swaggerville thing. It wasn't because we were playing great football and all of that. It was more so just to honor his name. We started selling T-shirts um, and things like that to start a scholarship fund at the University of Manitoba for Coach Harris.
Hmm.
And in the meantime, in between time, the fans kind of took it and ran with it. And then so did the media. So the media, when they found out that we called ourselves Swaggerville, they wanted to know more about it and where did it start and so on and so forth. So we ended up just kind of telling them how it began. And it actually started about 2 years before that. And they just caught on to it at that time. So once they took it and ran with it, then everybody started talking about it. And it actually made our t-shirt sales go through the roof. And we were we were able to donate a bunch of money to breast cancer and Winnipeg, and then we also donated to the University of Manitoba for scholarships and just a lot of different things that we use the money to give back to the community um, and things of that nature. But it really kind of went haywire because of the media and the fans. But I wasn't complaining because every time teams came to play against us, they had to hear about it, and it was just one of those things that was super contagious, and people hated it. Every day they came to Winnipeg, they hated to hear, you're entering Swaggerville, and they would just be pissed off, and then we'd be under their skin without even trying. So when they got on the field, like they had to deal with it anyways because we was gonna keep letting you know about it. That was just kind of our personality. It was like we were gonna dominate you, and we're gonna let you know about it. Like that was our mentality.
And here I thought it was because the Bombers had their best start since 1984 and 2011 and all of this, right? You guys were building on this. Bob Irving's like running the numbers daily, how good the defense is. I mean, you guys had it going on, and then, well, we all know what happened on Labor Day. So
Yeah. That wasn't a
no.
fun game.
No, no, and I even have Swaggerville written on the page here. So that's, I definitely wanted to bring that up. But you were Defensive Player of the Year in 2011 as well. So, you guys did go to the Grey Cup, played the East Final because
Yep.
Winnipeg was in the East in frigid cold.
It was cold.
It was cold. How did you kind of prepare for the weather? Was it similar to Pittsburgh or different?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Pennsylvania, so I'm pretty accustomed to the weather.
Hmm.
But it was cold. Like it was cold as hell. And I hadn't played in a game in that type of weather ever in my life.
Yeah.
Um, but at that point, at that moment, like it's mind over matter. You either show up and perform or you go home. And
Mhm.
that was just, our mindset is we weren't going home. So, at the end of the day, we wanted it more than them. And you could just tell when we got out on the field against Hamilton that night or that day, they cared more about the weather than they did about their performance. So, we showed up and we were ready to rock and roll. So we just played a better game, and our running game kind of took over as the game wore on. And Chris
Mhm.
Garrett had a hell of a day. Defensively, we did what we always do.
That's right. I remember him scoring that touchdown late and thinking, oh, this is the last touchdown ever scored in the stadium. We all know
Yeah.
the Bombers came back for another season. I remember driving in that morning and looking on Pembina Highway. I'm like, there's no way it's going to be finished. I mean, now that's all kind of water under the bridge, but what was it like playing in Winnipeg Stadium and just any particular games besides playoff games that kind of stick out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a blast. My time in Winnipeg was bar none, second to none in the CFL that I played. Um, I love Saskatchewan as well. Their fans are crazy, but there's nothing like Winnipeg fans. Like Winnipeg has the best fans in the country of Canada. Well, now Toronto will with me being over here. But anyways, Winnipeg is a second home to me. So I definitely had a blast playing there, and every time I got the chance to go on the field, whether that was in Canadians or at the new stadium, like I was always ecstatic just to be out there and representing Winnipeg in the best way possible. And but I had a number of games that stick out. Um, One was, we were down in the game against BC, and we we needed a return to set up a field goal opportunity. Um, and we were down three. So they ended up, it was like, I think it was 18 seconds or so left in the game, and they punted the ball to me at the 10-yard line. I returned it all the way to like the opposite 35, and we ended up kicking a field goal going into overtime. And on the first drive in overtime, Dion Beasley picked six out route against, I think it was Lule was the quarterback, I believe. And
Casey
we won the
Printers.
game, Casey Printers, and we won the game in like crazy comeback fashion. But that's one game that definitely stuck out to me. Um, I mean, there were many though. Like playing against Anthony Calvillo early in my career,
Hmm.
I actually, you know, I had a deja vu moment in the game where they ran a route on me earlier in the game, and I seen it, and I was thinking to myself, like, if I would have just went, I would have had an interception, and I probably would have scored. And then they came back to it, and I knew it was coming before it even happened. And as soon as he threw the ball, I was like, pick six, and I ended up intercepting the ball, and Avon Coburn tried to grab my arm, and I stiff armed him off, and I ended up running it back for a touchdown. But it was like during the game, I seen it happen before it actually happened. Like it was the craziest thing. And
Nice.
then I mean, I had multiple good games against Calvillo and Ricky Ray and Henry Burris and all these Hall of Fame guys that I've picked off numerous times in my career, and I'm
Mhm.
still not in the Hall of Fame. I don't understand how that happens, but it is what it is.
Your time will come, so you have to be excited about the opportunity to be now coaching football and kind of passing it on to things that you've learned in your career and that sort of
Oh
thing.
yeah.
You guys are playing Hamilton tomorrow, getting ready for the season, and that has to be pretty exciting for you.
It's definitely exciting for me. It's an opportunity to teach guys the things that I learned throughout my playing career and throughout spending time with coaches that I admire and coaches that have had great impacts on my career. And just giving that back to the players and showing them the things that they don't see, right? The things that they kind of ignore because as a player, you kind of get in your mode of who you are and how you get down and how you operate, but you don't see the subtle flaws in your game that you can, if you correct, you can be even better. So it's just kind of my thing of being a teacher, and listening to those guys and making sure that they understand me and we have a mutual respect, as far as like allowing me to coach them hard, and I'm gonna love them harder. Like I just teach those guys and I correct them and I criticize them because I want them to see the light at the end of the tunnel of how good they can be, and they can reach their potential fully without saying or having any regrets when they're done. Of if I would have just listened or if I would have just done this different, I could have been better. But I have a really good group. My group is amazing. My veteran guys are amazing. Even my young guys are amazing because they allow me to coach them And that's very rare in pro football. Like sometimes you get guys that know it all, and they don't want to listen, right? They don't want to listen because they think they already got it figured out, but they really don't.
Hmm.
It's like the simplest things of understanding that when the guy to the field lines up outside on the bottom of the numbers, right? He only has one which way he can go, and that's breaking on the in breaking route. So once you start to pay attention to the details of where these guys align and what they do and what they run and the route concepts and things like that, you kind of get familiar with things. And then when you see them happening on the game in a game situation, then you already know what's going to happen and it'll allow you to be a step faster and make a lot more plays that way.
Yeah, most definitely, right? And yeah, so again, the work is happening. And is this your first time coaching football?
No, I coached for 8 years.
Yeah.
So when I retired in 2019, I was the DB coach at Defiance College under a guy he came in as a guest coach in 2009 in Winnipeg, um, or two well no it was 2008, no it was 2009. He came in as a guest coach in 2009, ended up being the running backs coach that year. They kept him on because something happened with our running backs coach at that time, and then he ended up becoming the offensive coordinator in the game that Fred Reed and I can't think of the kid's name from Oregon State, but they broke the rushing record in BC for the
Mm.
most rushing yards in the game. Um, but he ended up becoming an OC for that team, and he was the head coach at Defiance at the time, and he offered me the DB job, and I took it. And um, in that first year in coaching, when I got there in the spring, we only had 19 players on the roster, so I had three DBs, and it was like we got to recruit all these players, these new players and things, and we brought in like 160 guys. Um,
Crazy.
but it was a hell of an experience. But at the same time, I was, me being me, like I coach guys hard because I want them to be elite at what they do, and that helped me though. It helped me learn, you know, and it helped me like it tested my patience because I had to realize that these guys aren't me, right? Like that was the biggest obstacle I had as a coach was understanding that the players that I was coaching were not me, right?
Right.
Because it was like routine plays that I'm like, this should be easy, but I had to reel myself back and just teach them how to be a better player and things of that nature. So, but Manny Matsakis was the head coach at Defiance, and he gave me an opportunity to start coaching. Um, and halfway through my first year of coaching, I became the defensive coordinator. So it was like, you know, it was insane. It was an insane transition from playing to coaching to becoming a DC. Um, but it was fun, right? I ended up um, in the first 6 games we gave up 50 points or more every week, and then when I took over, we gave up 14 points or less in the last 4 games. So um, going into my second year as a coach, he was interviewing other coaches for the DC job, and all of the players signed a petition and said they wouldn't play if he hired somebody else for the defensive coordinator position. So I ended up getting a job as the DC. We had a really good year, my second year, and then COVID happened. So that was kind of in the middle of it. And then we played that following spring after COVID. We only played a handful of games. And then in my last year, I ended up leaving and taking a job back home as a high school head coach. I took 2 years as the head coach at a high school and turned the program around that hadn't won in like 20 years. And in 2 years, we ended up winning the region. Had the region player of the year. We broke 20 plus records that were at the school for a long time. Um, and again, just had really good players that bought in and trusted the process, and they believed in me to be able to get them to the promised land. And we played really well. Like we definitely overachieved. And then afterwards, ran into some BS at the school with the previous coach and myself. His son was our quarterback, so it was just like it was like one of those things. And he was actually my health teacher in high school, which is really crazy. But he was pissed that his son didn't win the nomination for the Region Player of the Year. But anybody who watched us play knew that the best player on our team was not his son, and that was just me being honest. But I didn't tell him. I didn't tell his son that. But like his son was not our best player by far. Like we had a receiver that had 1,200 yards. His son had 2,200 yards passing, and the receiver had 1,200 of them. And the receiver had 25 touchdowns, and like it was, and he had 600 yards rushing, and he had like 5 interceptions on defense. Like it was like a no brainer.
Right, right,
So it was, and he was all state. Like it was like, I mean, what are we talking about? But
right, right.
when parents get involved, they love their kids, and I understand it, and so on and so forth. But started or somebody within a group of people, I don't know who, started a rumor that I was drinking and driving while taking kids on a college visit that I paid for out of my own money. But at the end of the day, like it was just a rumor that I had to deal with. And they try to put me on suspension or whatever, and I told them they could have their job back. Like I'm not you gonna let somebody go against my character and make it seem like I did something that I didn't do. So I
100.
gave them their keys and everything else and told them I quit. So I ended up taking a college job at Gannon, D2 school in Erie, in the PSAC. And I was there for 2 years. I was the DB coach and special teams coordinator. And then I got a call from Coach Miller at Toronto, and said that I came highly regarded, and he was interested in bringing me on.
Nice. It's nice how some things kind of come full circle and the journey to get there, right? Really appreciate the insights and everything else that you've shared here, Javon. Uh, Maybe just one last question before we go. You said you had 30
Mhm.
minutes. I think we're at 35 or
Yeah, I'm
40,
good.
but okay. Mentors, role models in your life.
My mom's my biggest role model. Because I seen her sacrifice so much for us to have the things that we had. The hard work that she put in on a regular, just to make sure that we could make ends meet. Like that really inspired me, and that's kind of where I get my work ethic from.
Yeah.
Um, and then from a coaching aspect of people that have impacted me, Phil Parker took me from an athlete that was very raw and can do a lot of different things, being able to be super quick and twitchy and jump out the gym, etc. But all those things are good, but if you can't control it and put it all together, it's never going to do you any good. So he actually taught me that I needed to rely more on my technique than on my athletic ability. So, my he really honed my technique and really like put a fine pinpoint on, the things that I needed to get better at. Like for 2 years, like he would chew me out every day, no matter if I had 10 interceptions or, you know, I could have had all the pass breakups in the world, but if I didn't do it right every time, then it wasn't good enough. And he would be on me, and it was consistent. And I didn't understand it. It was to the point where, I had a conversation with him. I'm like, well, is it like you don't like me or what? Like, what is the problem? And he was like, it's not that I don't like you. He was like, I love you. But at the end of the day, the things that you get away with in practice, you will not get away with in the game. And, and that really like struck a nerve for me. Like, dang, like maybe I do need to start paying attention and like stop relying on certain things and just do it the right way. And in my last 2 years, after having 10 interceptions in the first two, he didn't really coach me at all. Like, and I was like, that kind of took me back too, because now I'm like, you know, either you don't like me for real, or you just don't even want to talk to me anymore. And he told me that he don't need to coach me because he coached me hard for 2 years and I can self correct. So he allowed me to self correct myself. And I was older in the room.
Hmm.
So I was able to now use the knowledge that he gave me to instill that into the younger guys in the group. So, it was fun. I had a really good experience at the University of Iowa and the coaching staff. They were phenomenal. Darren Perry, another one, the DB coach with the Steelers, he believed in me. And that went a long way with me. And then I had a couple in the CFL guys that I really admired. And Coach Burrell, Don Burrell was one that was the DB coach in Winnipeg. Him and Coach Frick, uh, Coach, I can't even think his damn name. Um,
Head
he
coach?
was yeah, Rick Campbell, Coach Campbell,
Oh
and
yeah, Rick
Coach
Campbell.
Burrell
Yeah, yeah,
were co DB coaches in Winnipeg.
right.
But Coach Burrell really had an impression on me. Really left an impression. And then Ike Charlton, like a guy that I lined up with. Right, we lined up next to each other for years, and he became my coach in Ottawa in 2015. And I had probably one of my better years that I've had in the CFL. Was an All Star in 2015 with 5 interceptions. Um, and he really like kind of he wasn't easy on me. Like he challenged me to be great every day, and I'd appreciate that. And that's why when I think about me as a coach, that's why I'm that way with my players because
Hmm.
I challenge them every day to be better. Right? If it's
Right.
a play that I feel like they should have made, I'm going to challenge them the next day to make that play. Like, and I'm going to correct the things that they did wrong on that play so that they can make sure that the next day they got a chance to make that play.
That's exactly it, right? And yeah, those guys paid it forward to you. You're paying it forward. You keep going, right? So what are you looking forward to the most in 2026 for this season? Is it coming back to Winnipeg twice?
Oh yeah, I cannot wait to come
July
to
10th,
Winnipeg.
and
I
then
know I know I'm gonna
yeah,
get heckled, from the fans and things like that because I'm gonna be wearing a different color blue,
right.
but I look forward to it wholeheartedly. So, when I get there, hopefully they welcome me with open arms, but I can't say that they will.
Well, I mean, Thanksgiving, October 10th, you guys are here. So, I mean, everybody will be in a festive spirit, hopefully. And so, yeah, there is something about it. I mean, you were on the, but as you're talking about these games, you talk about the Casey Printers game, like that was Thanksgiving Monday, and
Yeah.
that was crazy, how that game kind of unfolded and just. The crowd was special that afternoon, I have to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was
It was
there's games that stick out, and that's one, yes.
Yeah, that one would never get old. I relive that moment every day. I talk to Beasley all the time, and we still reminisce about it. Me, him, and Hefney, and
Mhm.
Odell Willis, and our little crew.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. Right on. Was there anything else? You're an hour ahead of me, but was there anything else you'd like to talk about before I sign off here?
Hey, I'm an open book, man. So if any questions you got, I got answers for.
Well, I mean, it's interesting with the Pittsburgh Steelers there. You bring up all those guys, right? And then you talk about, possibly how they won Super Bowl 40. Uh,
Hmm.
Ben Roethlisberger makes the promise to Bettis, and then he makes that tackle, right? And then these guys he like Bob Sanders, like
Yeah,
he
legends.
made that interception in the AFC Championship game in 2007-ish, around that time. Like just
Hmm.
these moments, right? And like uh what I'm learning is a lot of you CFL guys know a lot of guys.
Oh yeah, we know a lot of guys for sure.
It's
It's a
it's,
lot of
it's wild.
really talented players that I mean I played with a bunch of them. I played with Robert Gallery, who was the second overall draft pick, Dallas Clark, who was a beast. Nate Kading, our kicker, was a long time player in the NFL. Bob Sanders, Sean Considine. I mean, the list goes on. Like there's a multitude of guys that I had you know relationships with that I play with that help me, um, in different ways. But a lot of guys for sure.
Mhm. That's good. That's so, so good. Well, I won't keep you much longer as you got a big game tomorrow versus the
Yeah, I know.
Cats. I'm going to be in Winnipeg watching the BC Lions. Season ticket holder, taking the game. But
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing you on July 10th and October 10th. So 2 10 games here. And I know it's a bit different for you guys with the World Cup and everything, but I think it's going to be a unique opportunity for you guys too.
yeah.
That's how I would
I
view it.
think it will be too for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're at the end of the day, you're playing football. Doesn't really matter where you play. It's a unique situation. BC Lions are playing in Kelowna. So, that's how it goes.
Yep.
Good deal. Well, I think I could go on, but I always want to be respectful of people's time. But this has been awesome, Jovon. I really do appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah. You take care, and we'll put this on my page and put it on YouTube in the next few. So, take it from there.
Alrighty.
All right. Take care.
Later.